Disclaimer. The following documentary contains allegations in investigative journalism based on publicly available information. All claims that involve illegal activity are alleged, and viewers are advised to form their own opinions. Welcome to Beneath the Brand. They say we are entering the age of Aquarius, a time when the shadows are stripped and secrets come to light. From Epstein's Erie Island to Harvey Weinstein's scandalous downfall, and now to the controversial saga of Abercrombie and Fitch's once revered CEO, Mike Jeffries. As we connect the dots, a question emerges. Was Abercrombie and Fitch a brand or a well-guarded facade for an elite trafficking ring? (1974) New York, the Jeffery Epstein Story.
Financial crisis in our cities. Now, here is Peter Hackett.
Many American cities are in financial crisis. There's nothing new about that. But recently, some cities have found themselves on the brink of bankruptcy. A recent study...
Before Abercrombie and Fitch became synonymous with the young and preppy, another story was unfolding in New York City, a city on the brink of economic collapse. The city was in a bad place, but change was on the horizon. History was being made as Abe Beame, the city's first Jewish mayor, had just been voted into office, promising a fresh start for New Yorkers.
Beame is New York City's 104th mayor, its first Jewish mayor, and the oldest man ever elected to lead the nation's largest city. He's 68. He's also the shortest mayor in New York history, 5 feet 2 inches.
It is a time when the people's trust in the integrity of their leaders has been greatly shaken. A time when the very principles of democratic government are being questioned. We intend to make our administration...
Abe had hopes of implementing economical change in the city's finance. As for over 3 decades, politicians had mishandled the city's finances, accumulating staggering amounts of loans from banks to cover public expenses. However, the challenges were immense, and by 1975, the city of New York was dangling by a thin thread.
The mayor says New York has only put off the certainty of bankruptcy until December, and that without help, the city will have to default on its debts and cut back on its operations by an additional $1 billion in the 4 months that follow.
The city required intervention from the federal government. Mayor Abe Beame requested a loan, which was initially rejected as President Gerald Ford saw no way that the city could return the investment.
What I'm asking you for, time. Through a federal loan guarantee, you can help us maintain a line of credit until we can re-enter the money markets.
New York's economy was too stagnant, and the high levels of crime were unattractive. Industry leaders closed their businesses, and middle-class residents relocated to more promising regions across America. This ultimately led to a shrinking tax base, making it nearly impossible for the city to balance its budget through tax revenue alone.
Many do not want to work. They come to New York attracted by the most generous welfare benefits in the country. A family of 4 gets £30 a week, plus £15 for rent.
But one day everything changed. A new conglomerate of influential bankers came together to form a committee known as Municipal Assistance Corporation, or simply Big Mac. Among them were financial titans, Felix Rohatyn, Donald T. Reagan, and David Rockefeller. They represented a new era where bankers had authorization over the city.
When you came from outside, from the world of high finance, to look at the way that your city was being run, were you surprised at what you found?
They would estimate revenues, going ahead 1 century and estimate their expenses as of yesterday. And the result was an accumulation over 10, 15 years of a $3 billion deficit that just disappeared.
Before becoming mayor, Abe Beame served as New York City's financial controller for 8 years, where he implemented policies that were meant to balance the city's financial books.
Books were balanced based upon a procedure and a bookkeeping setup which had been in existence for decades, you see.
Which Mr. Roten calls fraudulent accountancy.
Well, Let me put it this way. There was no intention to defraud anybody.
With the Big Mac in charge, along with mounting public pressure, President Ford approved a $2.3 billion loan to the city.
To provide a temporary line of credit to the state of New York to enable it to supply seasonal financing of essential services for the people of New York City.
As Big Mac were put in charge to manage the city's finance, they implemented major cuts in city services and layoffs of public employees, aiming to restore financial stability.
I lost all faith in the job. How can you work, and you don't know whether you're going to get paid on Friday? 2 weeks ago, they stopped the checks. They wouldn't pay some of the men.
They say crisis breeds opportunity, and that you should never let a good crisis go to waste. Jeffrey Epstein recognized the crisis as an opportunity to reshape his future. Epstein at the time was a teacher at Dalton School, teaching physics and math. But oddly enough, Epstein was a teacher without a degree nor a certification to teach. Looking at the details of what is known now, we ask ourselves, how on earth did Epstein become a teacher? It's quite shocking. While at the school, he tutored a chairman's son of a well-respected investment banking firm called Bear Stearns. This connection took Epstein's ambitions from the classroom to Wall Street. 1976, the come-up. Epstein switched teaching for investment banking and began his career at Bear Stearns, a prominent Wall Street investment bank. His charisma and intuition for investments helped him fast-track his career, setting him apart. He started as a junior assistant, demonstrated a natural ability to manage high-net-worth clients' portfolios, especially in complex options trading. And by 1980, he swiftly climbed the ranks and became a limited partner, an achievement that established his reputation. But this was short-lived. Epstein would soon leave Bear Stearns in 1981. The true nature of his departure is still a mystery. Many reports have claimed that Epstein was pushed to resign after his company had discovered his illegal operations. Epstein denied these claims, and this didn't stop him from going on to make the rich even richer. This marked the year that he rose up and founded J.Epstein Co, an ambitious investment banking firm with a strict policy of working with only ultra-wealthy clients, individuals with assets exceeding $1 billion. 1986 marked the year that Epstein met Les Wexner, the retail billionaire. The 1980s were a golden age for fashion and retail, and at the center of the glitzy lights of Fifth Avenue lay a man who would change the face of women's retail forever. Leslie Wexner, the founder and mastermind behind The Limited. Wexner's influence was vast. From Columbus to New York, from Palm Beach to Aspen, he had high-end friends and women clothing businesses across America, and soon the world. Les Wexner wasn't the kind of guy to stay in one lane. He operated like an octopus, each arm spinning a different plate. On one side, he was revolutionizing the American cultural shopping experience. On the other, he was deeply invested in reshaping the future of the Jewish communities. You see, Wexner represented a new era of Jewish tycoons, raised in the shadows of the Holocaust survivors and the founding generation of the State of Israel. He saw a void that demanded attention: the lack of leadership development within Jewish organizations. To fill this gap, he created the Wexner Foundation to cultivate a new generation of leaders who could redefine Jewish identity and legacy. For Wexner, leadership wasn't just a buzzword, it was a mission. He believed that empowered voices and innovative minds were essential to securing the future of Jewish communities. Through his foundation, Wexner set out to source talent, nurture visionaries, and strengthen the pillars of Jewish leadership for generations to come. And of course, a man of his stature had friends in high places. His long-term friend, Felix Rohatyn, the same finance expert that aided New York's 1975 crisis, even went on record saying, "Wexner's one of the most driven men he knows. His patience grows terribly with every success he achieves, but he's relentless. Wexner was no ordinary businessman. He expanded his brand from a small shop in Ohio into a $2.5 billion empire by 1986. But he had a major problem. He wanted more. He turned to Jeffery Epstein's investment firm to support his goals. The two would eventually build a strong partnership, and soon, Epstein would become more than just an advisor. From the 80s to 90s, Wexner's empire and cash flow grew steady with the help of Epstein. His company now included household names like Victoria's Secrets and Abercrombie and Fitch. Reports from this period reveal that Epstein would often conduct what he called auditions, presenting himself as a talent scout for Victoria's Secrets. Allegedly, many women were lured into his supposed modeling opportunities. In recent years, Wexner has strongly denied any knowledge of Epstein's actions. Yet given Epstein's close ties to the brand and his access to Wexner's network, questions linger. 1992, Jeffries joins the crew. Abercrombie and Fitch was a struggling outdoor brand in need of renovation. Les Wexner found the man that would revive the company, and that candidate was Mike Jeffries, Abercrombie and Fitch's new CEO. Jeffries had previously ran his own women's clothing line, called Alcott and Andrews. The company folded after failing to secure a 90-day financing agreement. Determined to revamp his career in Abercrombie, Jeffries introduced a bold vision that reshaped the company into an iconic teen preppy brand. His approach targeted youthful consumers with an all-American aesthetic that was both exclusive and provocatively edgy. (1995) Victoria's Angels. In 1995, Victoria's Secret entered a new era with its first Angels campaign, soon to become the brand's iconic hallmark. Whilst in the background, Epstein would continue to pose as a model scout, enticing young women with exclusive opportunities and promises of angel status. During this time, it's also said that he met his alleged partner in crime, Ghislaine Maxwell, a British socialite and Nepo baby. Her father, Robert Maxwell, was a British politician and fraudster who left his family with a ton of debt left in his name. He died on November 5, 1991, found dead in the Atlantic Ocean, by the Canary Islands after falling from his luxury yacht, leaving 9 children behind. The official cause of death was ruled as a heart attack. Theories persist regarding the mysterious nature of his death, with some speculating possible suicide or foul play due to his financial troubles. Also, it was revealed that approximately $700 million was missing from his company's pension funds. We ask ourselves, how does such a large sum of money go missing with no trace? From this point forward, it's understood that Jeffrey Epstein, with Ghislaine Maxwell's assistance, began organizing an intricate trafficking operation that exploited all types of individuals. With each passing year, Epstein and Maxwell are believed to have expanded their reach, leveraging powerful connections to orchestrate a system of control and concealment. How did they get away with it for so long? Was it due to the victims' relentless hunger for fame, or a simple lack of integrity that let them turn a blind eye? Or perhaps was it during a time when speaking up meant facing a wall of silence, with media outlets ignoring victims, voices in the law seeming to bend for the elite? As we dive deeper, the question lingers. Was it fear, complicity, or a system rigged to protect the powerful? The answers may lie hidden in the past, but we're here to uncover them, piece by piece. 2003, Gonzalez v. Abercrombie. In 2003, Abercrombie's all-white American branding led to the company facing a class action lawsuit alleging racial discrimination in the hiring practices, specifically in failing to hire qualified Black, Hispanic, and Asian American applicants, or placing them in less visible roles. The case continued for 2 years, and in 2005, A and F settled for $50 million and agreed to a consent decree to reform hiring and recruitment practices. The reality behind the glamour held hidden secrets. 2005. The Epstein investigation begins. Whilst Abercrombie settled their differences, in 2005, the Palm Beach police began an investigation into Epstein. A 14-year-old girl's stepmother had reported to the police that a wealthy man had done some extremely inappropriate things with her daughter. According to reports, Ghislaine Maxwell sourced the girl to provide massages to the financial advisors for a sum of $300. The only reason why this story came to light is because in schools, gossip spreads quickly. A school fight occurred at the girls' school where another student called her a S-worker for accepting money for sexual favors. Following this incident, news came to light. Reports claim that by the time detectives conducted a search at Epstein's home, several computers were missing, leaving detectives to believe that he was tipped off on the search. Recent reports claim that the computers were in his attorney's vault. From this point, numerous families would attempt to come forward with their own accounts. According to one family, they would receive numerous of threats from Epstein counterparts saying, "Those who help him will be compensated, and those who hurt him will be dealt with." This story is both deeply disturbing and shocking. But amidst the mounting of allegations, Jeffrey Epstein continued his philanthropic activities, including facilitating a high-profile trip to Africa. The journey was marketed as an initiative to support AIDS awareness and promote economic development. Epstein allegedly provided his private Boeing 727 jet for the trip, hosting notable figures such as former President Bill Clinton, actors Kevin Spacey and Chris Tucker, businessman Ron Burkle, and Billie Eilish's ex-booking agent Casey Wasserman. In recent years, this infamous trip has drawn scrutiny as the public questions what tangible charitable outcomes emerge. As Epstein's name became increasingly entangled in scandal, many attendees of this trip have attempted to distance themselves from him, sparking even more public interest in the true nature of the venture. Was this journey a genuine effort to address critical global issues, or a carefully orchestrated smokescreen concealing more sinister motives? Ultimately, Epstein's investigation went on for 3 years. Was justice and accountability finally served? Only time will tell as we delve into the results of the investigation and uncover what came next in this shocking saga. 2006. The Art of Fat Shaming. Mike Jeffries had an interview with Salon magazine that would later on come back to haunt him. When asked why Abercrombie & Fitch didn't sell women's clothing above a size 10, he infamously stated, "That's why we hire good-looking people in our stores. Because good-looking people attract other good-looking people, and we want to market to cool, good-looking people. We don't market to anyone other than that." This unapologetic approach to beauty and branding sparked outrage and controversy. Following this interview, the brand would soon make adjustments to their clothing sizes. But given Jeffrey's previous allegations, you would think that he would have thought twice before his answer. But a leopard never changes its spots. Following the 14-year-old's parents' lawsuit, in 2008, Epstein would eventually sign what became known as the Deal of the Century, the non-prosecution agreement, a plea deal impersonating him for just 18 months in which he would only serve 13. This also came with extraordinary privileges, allowing him to leave the jail for 12 hours a day, 6 days a week at the Palm Beach County Jail Private Wing. There are so many questions around this, like who tipped him off? How did he get away with such a lenient sentencing? And if the law dealt with him accordingly, would his trafficking continue? There are so many unanswered questions surrounding Epstein's plea deal. Who tipped him off? And is that person still working within the police force or government? And furthermore, How did he manage to secure such a lenient sentencing despite the severity of his crimes? And perhaps most chillingly, had the justice system acted more aggressively, would any of these victims have experienced his trafficking operation? These are questions that we ask and demand answers as we delve deep into the web of his connections and the influence that shielded Epstein for years. Meanwhile, across town, Mike Jeffries began hosting model scouting events which resembled to Jeffrey Epstein's Victoria's Secret casting couch auditions. Astonishingly, all of this unfolded under Les Wexner's leadership. Yet he allegedly remained unaware of how his financial advisor and CEO were conducting themselves during working hours. They say, money talks. But in this case, it was whispers behind closed doors that spoke even louder. By 2009, Michael Jeffries was allegedly using his influence at Abercrombie and Fitch to orchestrate a network of parties designed to lure young men from across Europe and North Africa. These aspiring models were promised a glamorous, fast-track entry into the world of high fashion, complete with private jets and professional-looking recruitment teams. They thought they were living their dream. But upon arrival, those hopefuls quickly realized they had been lured into something far darker than they'd imagined. The lavish treatment was a mere illusion, masking an operation with far more sinister intentions. Jeffries didn't run this sting alone. According to court reports, this was no small-time operation. It was well organized, involving recruiters from around the world. There was even a formal process that made the entire system seem legitimate. First came stage one, sourcing the potential recruits. This phase was run by a man with a peculiar face called James Jim Jacobson. Jacobson had a history in escort services, and he knew exactly how to recruit in this world. Once Jacobson had his picks, the next stage fell into the hands of Jeffrey's longtime partner, Matthew Smith. Little is known about Smith, but his role in this scheme was pivotal. As Jeffrey's commander-in-chief, Smith was responsible for managing a global network of recruiters and effectively had the final say in who made the cut. This network continued its operations for decades, affecting countless lives along the way. Jeffrey's abuse of power was no secret to those in the know, but for too long it remained hidden in the shadows. Stay tuned as we dive deeper into this chilling web of manipulation, corruption, and abuse. 2010, Abercrombie versus Hani Khan. It's fair to say that from this point, Abercrombie were on a downward slope. Things escalated when the EEOC, which is Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, filed a lawsuit after the company allegedly fired a Muslim woman named Hani Khan for wearing a hijab. The court ruled in Khan's favor, sending a strong message against Abercrombie look policy, which dictated employee appearance to align with Mike Jeffries' branding. This ruling highlighted the ongoing criticism of the company's practices regarding diversity and inclusion in the workplace. 2012, the cracks begin to show. In 2012, the first public lawsuit against Mike Jeffries broke the surface. This time, it wasn't about Abercrombie's controversial brand image. It was personal. His private jet's cabin crew accused him of imposing bizarre rules, audacious demands, and a working environment that felt more like a dictatorship. From the way the pilots had to address him, to strange seating plans for their dog, the lawsuit exposed Jeffries' need for control. It hinted at a much deeper, troubling pattern, one that exploited power and blurred lines between professional and personal dominance. But we won't dive into this one too much, as there are much weirder things to uncover. In 2014, Jeffries steps down. After 22 years, Mike Jeffries called it a day and resigned as CEO of Abercrombie & Fitch, marking the end of an era. Jeffries had redefined the brand into a preppy, aspirational symbol for American college culture. But the very ethos that elevated Abercrombie became its Achilles heel. Under his leadership, controversies over marketing practices, discriminatory hiring process, and declining sales plagued the company. Following his departure, Abercrombie's stock jumped 7%, signaling to investors and Les Wexner that the company was ready to chart a new course.
Scary time in my life. I had just been abused by a member of a royal family. I didn't know what could happen. And I couldn't comprehend how on the highest levels of the government and powerful people were allowing this to happen, not only allowing it to happen, but participating in it.
By 2015, a storm was brewing for Jeffery Epstein and Les Wexner. Epstein's most prominent accusers, Virginia Giuffre, launched 2 lawsuits that aimed to expose the elite's darkest secrets. The first was a declaration that Epstein, with the assistance of Ghislaine Maxwell, trafficked her to 3 powerful men, and the list of names included his long-term friend and member of the royal family, Prince Andrew. Oddly enough, the next name was Epstein's lawyer, a man named Alan Dershowitz. We have a clip of Alan Dershowitz engaging in a fiery debate with Mohammed Hijab on Piers Morgan Uncensored. What started as a discussion about Dershowitz's stance on a 2-state solution in Israel quickly escalated into a tense exchange.
Well, first of all, I would like to say that wherever we see suffering, wherever we see death and destruction, especially of young people, assault, sexual assault, we see Dershowitz to the rescue, the former defense attorney of Jeffrey Epstein, a man himself accused of rape.
I knew we would get to that. I
didn't give you permission to interrupt me. I didn't give you permission to interrupt me. I stayed quiet when you were talking.
Okay,
here's what I would say.
I stayed quiet when you were talking.
Hang on. Here's what I would say.
Let's stick to the merits.
I didn't give you permission.
Listen, Mohammed, attacking a lawyer for defending people is a stupid argument.
And as if that wasn't enough intrigue, we pivot to Epstein's employee and close confidant. Last but not least, Les Wexner. Giuffre alleged that she had been delivered to Wexner on multiple occasions. She detailed that Maxwell allegedly worked as Epstein's madam. This sent shockwaves through Epstein's network of associates. However, a federal judge struck Virginia's affidavit claims. Dimming her spotlight, Ghislaine Maxwell would later go on to label Virginia Giuffre's allegations as lies, prompting Giuffre to file a second lawsuit for defamation of character. Giuffre argued that Maxwell's denials not only damaged her credibility, but also caused significant emotional distress by dismissing her claims of being a victim of trafficking and abuse. The case was settled under seal in June 2017, with Maxwell reportedly paying Giuffre millions. From this point onwards, Giuffre was a one-woman army, as she would march back to the courts and filling individual trafficking legal suits against Alan Dershowitz, Prince Andrew, and another one of Epstein's alleged madams, a lady called Rena O. Virginia Giuffre's drive would ultimately lead to the broader narrative surrounding Epstein's trafficking operations and the various powerful figures linked to him. We must emphasize that if it wasn't for Virginia, many of these stories wouldn't be brought to light. What does this say about our society? Have we unwittingly given wealth the license to dehumanize, allowing the elite to evade scrutiny under the guise of untouchable authority? As this case unfolded, it became not just a scandal of individuals, but a reflection of how power dynamics shape justice or suppress it. Somehow, we've allowed wealth to equate to power and control, where the elite are looked up as though they cannot do wrong, and those with less finances feel inferior. Will things change for the best in the future? I guess only time will tell. 2019, the Billionaires Prison Club.
Could you please give us your name?
Jeffery Epstein.
Is it true, sir, that you have what's been described as an egg-shaped...
Once known as the financial advisor that made the rich richer. By July 2019, Jeffery Epstein had become notorious for all the wrong and degenerate reasons. His facade was shattered, revealing a darker identity as the architect of an international trafficking network tied to some of the world's most powerful figures in politics, finance, and entertainment. Whether if they participated in wrongful activities or not, the ties to Epstein were undeniable. Allegedly, Ghislaine Maxwell was not the only woman that supported Epstein. She just so happened to be the most prominent. Epstein diversified his network, involving everyday civilians who also allegedly played a role in facilitating his operation.
Not only did they assist with it, but then they assisted later to keep these girls quiet.
I first came into contact with an assistant of Epstein's while on a high school drama club field trip to New York City. I was invited to his home. There, his assistant took a photo of me and then later reached out to me inviting me to Epstein's ranch.
What happens when a man thinks he's a god and lives by his own laws? Day by day and week by week, shocking insider accounts began to emerge. The infamous Little St. James Island emerged as a backdrop to unimaginable crimes, hosting compromising sex parties in a ritualistic fashion that would allegedly be used for blackmail. Rumors intensified as connections to the Israeli Mossad strengthened. This left many people asking, who is Jeffery Epstein?
By phone. Tom, what more do you know?
Peter, what we know is that at some point this morning, Bureau of Prisons and prison officials found Jeffrey Epstein in his cell. Apparently, he had hanged himself, and they called the EMS, the Fire Department of New York, EMS. He was in cardiac arrest at that time. He was transported to New York's downtown hospital, and then he was pronounced dead.
On the night of Epstein's death, countless secrets were buried alongside him. Allegedly, the billionaire had an obsession for secretly recording influential figures in a manner similar to Sean Diddy Combs. As these secrets went to the grave, one lingering question remained. If he had ever chosen to reveal all, which of the powerful figures he mingled with would have had the most to lose? Reports also claim that on the night of his death, the camera closest to his cell weren't operating. This whole scenario raised eyebrows and fueled skepticism about the circumstances surrounding his death. 2023, Mike Jeffries Kink-offs. Pills, drugs, injections, and private jets. These were all elements that were allegedly facilitated by Mike Jeffries during his sex parties. How is this revealed? A former Abercrombie model called David Bradbury filed a lawsuit accusing Jeffries of operating an organized trafficking ring with Abercrombie and Fitch's money. With mounting of evidence, there was no escaping for Jeffries as his dark activities were revealed. The lawsuit also implicated Abercrombie, asserting the company facilitated Jeffries' access to resources, allowing him to execute the kink-offs. A documentary made by a BBC journalist called Rihanna Croxford that reportedly further prompted the FBI to investigate into Jeffries' alleged crimes. Bradbury's allegations indicates that the modeling industry harbors systemic issues that require urgent reform. As this case unfolds, the question remains, how many other secrets lurk beneath the fashion world?
Powerful individuals for too long have trafficked and abused for their own sexual pleasure young people with few resources in a dream of securing a successful career in fashion or entertainment. To anyone who thinks they can exploit and coerce others by using the so-called casting couch system, this case should serve as a warning. Prepare to trade that couch for a bed in federal prison. Also, as alleged, on more than one occasion, Jeffries and Smith either directed others to inject or personally injected men with an erection-inducing substance for the purpose of causing the men to engage in sex acts the men were incapable of engaging in or unwilling to engage in. But while Jeffries was the CEO of one of the most recognizable clothing retailers in the world. He was using his power, his wealth, and his influence to traffic men for his own sexual pleasure and that of his romantic partner, Matthew Smith.
From fat-shaming scandals to allegations of sex trafficking, Mike Jeffries' story is one that some say is unusual, unhinged, or eerily bizarre. Currently out on a $10 million bond, Jeffries faces an uncertain future. His next court date is dated for December 2024, where he and his co-defendants could face a mandatory minimum of 15 years and possibly a life sentence, meaning Christmas dinner behind bars. But the timing of these arrests has raised questions. Jeffries' indictment came not long after Diddy Combs' legal troubles. Are these high-profile cases merely coincidental? Or could Diddy's situation be connected to revelations from Jeffrey Epstein's infamous network? Or are we witnessing a ripple effect as law enforcement finally peels back the layers of influence and secrecy protecting the powerful? And then there's Les Wexner, the link between Epstein and Jeffries, yet he remains remarkably untouched by the storms around him. Religious conspiracy theorists have speculated about Wexner's supposed invocation of a Dybbuk spirit, a figure from Jewish folklore said to be a possessing force. Wexner allegedly credited this entity with his unrelenting drive and success. Perhaps this is a story of cultural myth or a psychological tool he uses to explain his market leverage. Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain: Wexner's name is never far from the echoes of these scandals. As we close this chapter, it's clear this is just the beginning of a much larger narrative. These cases aren't just about individuals. They're about systems of power, the dynamics of control, and the blind spots society has allowed to grow for far too long. We hope you found this documentary thought-provoking. If you enjoyed our exploration, please like, subscribe, and share your suggestions for future stories in the comments.